But I mean, none of us are 10s, right? Especially because the platform's constantly changing. But the people who really stuck out to me, one, is it Joyce?
Yes.
So Joyce stuck out to me because she shares one of my 3 words. My 3 words are catalyst, compass, connector. And so we share that word. The other person who I just want to make googly eyes and be really nice to is Jim, because he's the camera guy. And so I'm hoping that he's going to always catch my good side. And then, is it John? So John sticks out to me because he's a self-proclaimed rock star, which is super impressive, because I think part of what we all have to get really used to doing, which is a little uncomfortable for some of us, is self-promotion and getting really comfortable with our own skin and really thinking highly about ourselves and being okay with that. I admire the fact that you see yourself as a rock star. You look a little David Bowie-ish. But no, you are a rock star, so thank you for sharing that with us. But welcome, everyone. I always like to start these discussions with sort of sharing my own true confession, and really it's that LinkedIn did not come easy to us as an organization or me as an individual, because in the grand scheme of everything that we've got going on in life, it's a lot of noise, right? Social media, when we think of Twitter and Facebook and all these other platforms and trying to figure out where do we need to invest our time and our energy. And so we really initially, I stiff-armed social media and LinkedIn in particular, because again, it's social media du jour. I mean, pick your platform. We can spend a lot of time there. It wasn't until a really good friend of ours shared a story with us about how he was able to introduce 2 of his connections. One was the CEO of Culligan Water Company. The other was a friend of his who had a patent, who wanted an introduction to the CEO of Culligan Water Company. And that introduction resulted in a $40 million business transaction. Now, I know in the back of your all's mind, you're thinking, you know what, I'm here to get a job, I'm not here to introduce people. But do not gloss over the story, because the thing that stuck out in my mind was that, number one, our friend wasn't an engineer, he wasn't in public utilities, but he was just inserting himself in the middle of a conversation. And because his friend who won this $40 million transaction was head over heels excited about it, he was in a position where he received a very significant 5-figure, oh, thank you for making that introduction to me, check. And so I know you're looking for jobs in your next opportunity, but I'm guessing that if a 5-figure check, thank you for making that introduction to me, Tom, showed up on your doorstep, you wouldn't be like, no, I don't want this money, I'm looking for a job, right? We'd all be for deposit only into our bank accounts, right? And so it's important that we think beyond sort of even what is maybe a traditional job search that you may be going through right now, to sort of put overalls on this process to really get the platform to go to work on your behalf. So Ken shared a little bit about my background with you all, but the key piece that I want to help you all to understand is, although we serve a lot of large organizations, we serve a lot of job seekers and workforce development organizations as well. So I feel like I'm at least a little bit capable of helping you to understand how to better navigate the platform to meet your desired outcomes. And so the bottom line is I always like to share the story of our friend, the $40 million transaction, as well as our story, so generating over $500,000 within the first 24 months of us implementing a repeatable strategy, because there's nothing special about us. You can do it too. It's just a matter of understanding why you're there and then packaging yourself, taking time to package yourself in such a way where your brand, you're really focusing on building a really strong brand so that employers, recruiters, hiring managers, the LinkedIn community in general can find you and use your expertise as a mechanism to solve problems. So I'm going to share some free resources with you towards the end of this, so stay tuned. Really quick objectives, I'm going to skirt by this because it'll become really clear to you as we go through the information. But I want to spend a little bit of time here because I know for me, I'm not a technologist, and probably most of you, based on your backgrounds, you're not technologists either. And oftentimes what our apprehension about being in LinkedIn or any social media platform for that matter is, well, I'm not a technologist, this feels weird to me, and I'm not comfortable. But the saving grace is, the good news is so many of your questions have nothing to do with the technology. A lot of them, when you peel back the layers of your question, probably have something to do with either networking or relationship development. and or branding, and how do I properly brand myself. And I'm hopefully going to share with you some strategies to address some of those questions. This is designed to be a very interactive conversation, though, so keep that in mind. I know typically towards the end you take questions, but I want to, if something comes to you and I'm on a topic and you're like, oh wait, but what about this? We definitely want to address those questions. So make sure you stop me, raise a hand if you have a question. There are no such thing as stupid questions. Probably if you have the question, someone else has the question as well. So I would rather you ask the question here than for all of you to wait, then try to connect with me on LinkedIn and each ask me the same question, because as you can see, there's one of me and many of you all, so I would rather the question to be asked here in this setting. So social media and LinkedIn in particular, it really doesn't change who we are. What these platforms are designed to do is amplify our voice, or it magnifies who we are. So I jokingly tell people all the time, if you're a little socially quirky one-on-one, you're still going to be socially quirky. It's just that a lot more people are going to know about it. So you need to be mindful of what you're saying on this and any other platform for that matter. And so let me digress for a moment too. This now would be a good time, and I know none of you, because we're all 40 plus, right? So none of us say things that are inappropriate on any social media platform, right? But if you do, now would be the appropriate time for you to clean up some of that stuff, because you have a digital, your digital asset means so much, and employers will look at your digital asset to determine more about who you are, because you're not just a representation of yourself, you're a representation potentially of them and their brand, and so that would be now would be a good time for you to clean those platforms up. Oftentimes people will say, yeah, but Kelly, you're stymieing my freedom of expression. And I always say, yeah, well, you have the right to freedom of expression, but you also have the right to freedom of unemployment. Which would you rather? Freedom of expression or freedom of unemployment? So just be wise about what you're saying on this and any other platform for that matter. Why is LinkedIn important? It's important because you've got 500 million professional users on the platform, so certainly that's a reason why it's important. But also, when I last checked, over 5.8 million US-based jobs currently listed on LinkedIn. Over 170,000 of them are right here in the DC area. The other reason why it's very, very important is because when asked which social networking site do you primarily use for professional networking, 61% of the respondents said LinkedIn. So that's your tribe. These professionals are the people that you're looking to connect with and build relationship inside of. Another reason why LinkedIn is really important is because we're currently entering and probably are in the thick of what's called the gig economy. Is everyone familiar with the gig economy? Are you familiar? Yeah. Okay, anyone unfamiliar? How about that? So the gig economy states that by 2020, 40% of working adults will be freelance or independent contractors. So, if you're thinking W-2, W-2, I want to encourage you to think a little differently. Just think, you know what, if I find a W-2 opportunity, that's great. But in the interim, I've got some skills that are of value to employers. Let me go ahead and approach them differently as an independent contractor. So let me take off my W-2 hat and maybe put on my Me Inc. hat and think of myself more as an enterprise that can engage with employers. So that's why, another reason why LinkedIn is super important as well, because it can really help it can help compress the time that it takes for an organization or an individual who's a decision maker inside of that organization to get to know, like, and trust you in order to then hire you as a resource inside of that organization. So we're going to hop into 7 strategies to optimize your LinkedIn profile to land your dream job, or it could be your dream gig as well. Yes, sir?
Wanted to find out if you're going to be making this deck available to the group.
Yes. So
Great.
Ken has it, and he will send it out, because, I don't want you getting carpal tunnel taking notes.
Great.
Trying to keep up with me, so.
Sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
We will send it only if we have an eligible email.
Legible, yeah. Yeah, so if you
All
you signed in online, thank you, because we'll have your information that way. But if you signed in on the form, please make sure it's legible.
So yes, so you can get this presentation. So, number 7, complete your profile. By show of hands, how many people know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that their profile is complete according to LinkedIn's definition of completeness? Okay, So a handful of you, so that's good. So it's very easy to do. It's only these few little elements. This is LinkedIn's definition of completeness. Do you have your industry and location, a current position with a description, 2 past positions, education, at least 3 skills, a profile photo, and at least 50 connections. Once you do that, LinkedIn goes behind the scenes and magically checks a box to say that your profile is complete. Now that is not to be mistaken for the different levels of, oh, you're an all-star, you're this, you're that, because you're constantly going to be encouraged to stay inside of the platform. So even though your profile may be complete according to their definition, there's always going to be ways for you to enhance and sort of perfect your profile, so to speak. The reason why completeness is important is because according to LinkedIn, users whose profiles are complete are 40 times more likely to be presented for opportunities. So the reason why that is important is because let's take Laura, for example. What's your background again, Laura? So I may know, I'm an employer, I'm a recruiter, and I've been tasked with finding a political communications resource. So I'm going into LinkedIn and I'm typing in political communications because I don't know that Laura Battles even exists in my world. So because I'm typing in those keywords, Laura is more likely to be presented if her profile is complete, because now LinkedIn understands, oh, well, you're not a pretender, you're a player. You actually want to be engaged in the LinkedIn community. So that's why completeness is important. But beyond completeness, we want to encourage you to make sure your profile is alive. So completeness is foundational. Alive gets you out of the basement into the house. So is your profile accurate? Is it locatable? Is it impactful? Is it value-based? And is it engaging? Because that takes your presence to a whole different level than simply being complete. Yes, ma'am.
My one question is, in terms of completeness, if you're out of a job and unemployed, is it better to create something in that top, area, or is it better to just kind of leave your old job on there and wait for, the next job?
So the challenge becomes this, is that technically, if you leave your old job and you show it as current, that's not really the truth. And so you want to make sure that there's a clear end date, unless, of course, you have permission from your employer to keep it on. And the thing, what's your name again? Patty. So Patty had a question earlier, and one of the things that we trick our minds into thinking when we're on LinkedIn, that the word experience means employment. If you've noticed on LinkedIn, the section doesn't say employment, it says experience. And so you probably have current relevant experience that may be, oh, okay, I'm an independent contractor, or this is a project that I'm doing, or maybe you're doing volunteer work. Maybe you serve on a board. So it may be that you want to showcase that experience and define it in such a way where there's a transferable skill set associated with that role, so that it doesn't look as though you're unemployed, so to speak. So you do have a current position. Because technically hopefully we all have a continuous current position. Hopefully there's something that we're all continuously doing. Even if we're just in the process of looking, maybe there's short assignments that we can list as experience inside of our LinkedIn profile to keep current, so to speak. Even if you're just taking classes, maybe you're training and taking classes, maybe you're getting a new skill set, and so you're a student in some sort of program. So that technically is experience. It's not employment, but LinkedIn doesn't say employment. It says experience. So keep that in mind. Number 6 strategy is to be attractive. And you notice I have attractive in quotations because beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? And what I mean by this is making sure that you have a LinkedIn picture, a professional headshot. And if you don't have a professional headshot, you notice LinkedIn will give you that lovely gray silhouette. But look at how the lovely gray silhouette looks a lot like the ski mask. And just like none of us would have walked in this room in a ski mask and expected people to embrace us, they're not going to do it in that community either. So just make sure you have a good representation of yourself, not you and your family or you and your spouse or you and your pet, to make sure it's a good representation of yourself. Now, how many people have heard of this resource called PhotoFeeler? Anybody heard of PhotoFeeler? So PhotoFeeler is a platform that they take a crowdsourcing approach almost to evaluating your headshot. And now I know I can see the ghastly look that's coming over a lot of like, oh no, don't have anyone look at my headshot. But what they're doing is the PhotoFeeler community, which are just people just like you and I, go in and you rate different people's headshots. Now, and they're doing it in the context of, okay, this is a LinkedIn headshot, so it's a professional headshot. This is my background or my skill set. So someone in a marketing role may have a very different rating than someone who's financial services, where you're buttoned up and maybe it's a suit and tie type of environment. But what the PhotoFeeler community is going to do is they're going to look at your profile, your headshot, and evaluate it based on how competent do you look, how likable do you look, and how influential do you look. Which all of those characteristics are very important to have, especially if you said one of those three in the introduction remark. You can't say it and not look it, right? And so this is a great way for you to get that objective feedback on your headshot. And so, you know, I've heard all sorts of reasons as to why people don't want to have a headshot. Kelly, I'm old, I'm bald, I'm black, I'm overweight. Guess what? When you get to that interview, they're going to see that you're old, you're bald, you're black, you're overweight. So why not just, you know, just put it out there up front, let them have whatever small-minded opinion that they want to have of you, and keep it moving. You're not going to waste your time or their time. Yes, ma'am.
What do you say they are looking when they see your picture? What are they thinking? What do most recruiters do when they look at your picture? You said confident is one.
No, not competent.
Competent.
Do you look competent? Do you look influential? Do you look likable? Because think about it. Employers are looking for people who fit, right? We all hear this fit word, and fit in one organization is very different than fit in another organization, right? And so all of those qualities, though, are things that regardless of the organization, they're going to want you to look competent, likable, and influential, because again, you are a representation of them as well. And so, you know, and it's not as though you need to hire a photographer and get these glamour shots or anything like that. I'm just encouraging you to perhaps smile, or, you know, just do things that make you look friendly, that make you look approachable, that make you look competent. Oftentimes for women, you know, it's like the picture that was on the front. So I have a picture where my hands are. My competence went through the roof because all of a sudden you fold your. To me, it's like, oh, you look stuffy and unapproachable. But evidently, you know, there's a thin line between looking stuffy and unapproachable and looking competent. And so it's just little things that we can do because, you know, our words are only a small piece of what we're communicating. It's how do we look? What, you know, are we standing, you know, erect and strong and tall and all these different things that can easily be picked up in a picture. You'd be amazed. And so I would challenge you to try PhotoFeeler. Yes, ma'am. So PhotoFeeler is free if you rate other people. So you can rate, like, 25 I think is the lowest. So you just go and click, 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 click 25 times, and then you're going to get 25 back. I encourage you to do closer to 40, because 25, there's always going to be some outlier, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, people say that I don't look nice. Well, no, it was only one person, and it caused your score to be skewed. So I always recommend go in, score 40 people, get your 40 scores, so that then you have a better idea of your photo. Yes, ma'am.
So when you rate them, you just look at their photos or you look at their profiles?
No, it's just a picture, because this is it's not associated with LinkedIn. So you're simply, it's just a picture of the person, and then it's going to say, oh, it's for LinkedIn, and then it's going to have the rating, like what their background is, or their title, or the industry that they're in, so that you have a better understanding of sort of who they are and all that good stuff. Yes, sir.
Yes, I had my pictures noted that it should be updated, or
How often should your picture be updated?
How often should it be updated?
As long as it looks like a representation of you. Like, if it's, as long as it's not your high school picture, you have a full head of hair, and people are like, wait a second, this is not the right guy. You know, as long as it's a current representation of you, you shouldn't be changing your picture every 2 weeks or anything like that.
Okay.
Unless, of course, you get this amazing picture that you just want everybody to see. So.
There's something on LinkedIn that said update. It says, little note says update pictures.
Yeah. So, I mean, you may want to, but again, keep in mind, LinkedIn is Now that Microsoft owns LinkedIn, it's a marketing company. They want you to spend every waking hour in the platform. So they're going to keep telling you, do this, do that, do the other thing. So don't spend a lot of time on that. Number 5 is highlight your value. Directly under your photo is your headline. You almost need to train yourself to think of your LinkedIn profile like a newspaper, where your name is the equivalent of, let's say, USA Today. The space directly under that, your headline, you want to make sure that it's intriguing, that it's impactful, that it tells a compelling message about you, but that it also includes the keywords. Now, the thing that you have to your advantage is that, well, if you're unemployed, you don't need to feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have a job, so I don't even know what to write in the headline, because I recommend that you don't even put your, even once you get a job, you don't want your title to be in the space. So, for example, for me, it would read CEO Taylor Leonard Corporation, if I didn't tell it to do anything differently. Well, that, in me saying that, it forces a person to read my profile instead of getting a quick soundbite of information to get a better understanding of who I am and the value I could potentially provide that organization. So instead, it reads speaker, trainer, consultant, delivering customized solutions to drive operational excellence and profitability. Because I know the community that I'm trying to connect with are using the keywords speaker, trainer, consultant. It may be political communication specialist or political communication professional, doing whatever, communicating blah, 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 like, okay, helping organizations to create media that ensure long-term visibility and, or viability, visibility and growth. So you have to ask yourself, when you think of your elevator pitch, how can you tweak your elevator pitch so that it reads more like an escalator pitch? So does anyone escalator pitch? So an elevator pitch, what is it? 60 to 90 seconds between floors. Escalator pitch, riding on an escalator opposite the other person. And I'm not talking like what I can't remember what the longest escalator in DC Metro is. But yeah, so it's not that escalator. It's a short escalator. And so, but you need to be able to get your message across in 3 to 5 seconds. So in that space, perhaps even answering the question, why would I hire or do business with you? That could be the reason why. So it's stating your value up front, but also integrating keywords so that if someone's doing a search for that expertise, you pop up in the search results and they're able to quickly understand what's in it for me. What can I expect you to do for my organization? Well, for me, you can expect operational excellence and profitability. Oh, that's intriguing. Let me read on. Make sense? Yes, ma'am.
I think just as they work in the Harvard leadership training, and that's precisely what they talk about, your results statement.
Yes. I should go to, wow, I didn't even go to Harvard. I got a public school education on Harvard time. Yes, sir.
Are there any buzzwords or languages, cliches that you may recommend not to include in the?
That's a great question. So one thing that I recommend that you don't include, and I see job seekers do this often, they'll say something that almost causes the trigger for me to, I can see right off the bat you're unemployed, looking for a job or searching for a blah, blah, blah. Because unfortunately, the thing is that let's say that's the way my headline reads. I'm currently out of work looking for a job, and let's say Tom and I connect. Maybe Tom is a friend of mine from way, way back, and I haven't talked to Tom in years. And so there's that angst that I have about, oh my gosh, I'm going to reach out to Tom, but you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to reach out to Tom. So I send Tom a request to connect, and he immediately says, looking for a job. What's his mind thinking? Girl, you haven't called me in how many years, and now all of a sudden you're calling me? I bet it's because you need me to help you to find a job, and I don't have time. I just don't have time. And so you may be repelling people as opposed to attracting people. Now, in that same scenario, I could still say delivering customized solutions to drive operational excellence and profitability. Now, Tom, when I reach out to him and I send him a personal message, hey, Tom, I know it's been a while, let's catch up. Would love to find out more what you got going on, you know, how you're closing out the year. It's been so long. We should catch up. Now, Tom is probably a bit more open to receiving a call from me, even though in the back of my mind, I know I'm unemployed, but he's more likely to be open to a conversation because he's not immediately right off the bat thinking, oh my gosh, you're just reaching out because you need something from me, right? Because people want to help people, but they also kind of do it on their terms sometimes. And so we have to be mindful of that and not repel people. Yes, ma'am.
this may not be appropriate at this point, but will you be able to touch on premium LinkedIn and whether?
I can answer that question.
Okay.
Yeah. So tune into the right station. That's number 4. Everybody, WIIFM, we're all listening to it. We're not listening to WTOP. We're not listening to any of them. Sirius XM. We're all tuning into WIIFM, which is what's in it for me. So your profile needs to read so that I, as a potential recruiter or hiring manager, can understand how in the past have you helped save or make organizations money, create efficiency, solve problems, bring peace of mind. Because I need to see you as a solution to my problem, otherwise I dismiss you. And so while it's great to share all the different information about your background and different places that you've worked and all that good stuff, you would be better served if in your summary and experience and all these other content sections, if you're sharing content that shares the measurable impact that you've had being in those environments. So again, how have you helped organizations save money, make money, create efficiency, solve problems, bring peace of mind? What's in it for me? Number 3.
Excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Are you saying even at the beginning where you have your picture, you want to have do that?
In the beginning where I have where your picture is just a picture. You can't really do anything.
Underneath where you're summarizing yourself.
So even in your headline, yeah, you can answer what's in it, because remember mine, what's in it for me? Well, what's in it for you? Increased efficiency and profitability. That's what's in it for you. Then if you read my summary, you're going to see more about, well, what's in it for you? You're going to see the measurable outcomes that have resulted from me being in different work environments. And so it's almost like, hopefully your resumes or CVs already kind of read like that, where it just becomes a copy and paste exercise. But if it doesn't, I would encourage you to spend some time thinking back, okay, when I look at this role, when I look at this content, if I'm the reader, what's in it for me? What can I expect? How will you save me money, make me money, so on and so forth. Number 3, make sure your profile builds credibility. So the way that you want to build credibility is by giving and or receiving recommendations and endorsements. So let's start with endorsements. We all know, so endorsements are kind of like a Facebook, like a thumbs up, a like. There's good, there's bad, and there's ugly to them. The good is that it's a quick way for you to get validation of your expertise from your network. The bad is that oftentimes people have an ulterior motive where they're saying, okay, I'll endorse you, but I'm expecting you to endorse me back. Because how many times, has anyone ever experienced where they've gotten an endorsement for something and you're thinking, well, how does that person, they don't even know that I'm capable of doing that. And so it begs the question, well, how valid are the endorsements? Well, the challenge is because that's a metric that LinkedIn looks at, you kind of need to play nice in the sandbox with it, otherwise it's to your detriment. Because let's say pound for pound, Tom and I have similar backgrounds. Let's just say it's like risk management. But he's got 99 plus endorsements, I have 2. Well, he looks like a more credible resource to the LinkedIn community. So if pound for pound our profiles are similar, he's going to potentially outrank me and or meaning be presented as a resource over me when someone does a search on risk management. So it's important to be aware of that. Yes, sir.
I had a few years ago, I get these messages. You have a recommendation and or endorsement, but I could never figure out where it was and how to put it on my profile.
So it probably was a recommendation. Have you figured it out?
No.
Okay, I'll talk to you offline. But to your point, recommendations. So recommendations, unlike an endorsement, which is just a simple like kind of thumbs up to your skills, recommendations are very important because now here you have a body of work. So it's someone took the time to actually do keystrokes to say something nice about you, to compliment you on a particular body of work. Recommendations are important, and so I would encourage you to seek recommendations, seek getting recommendations. And as you're thinking, well, who could I ask a recommendation from? Think of, prior supervisors, or maybe it's your peers. They could be, clients or different people that you've supported through the years. But a little twist on this would be, and as you're thinking, okay, who are the people that I would list when I'm applying for a job as my references? Those are the people that you would want to ask recommendations from. Now, but don't just blindly ask for the recommendation. So let's say it's Nancy. So let's say Nancy and I worked together years ago, and Nancy supervised me, and I know that I'm looking for a job. I could email or call Nancy to say, hey Nancy, you said that you would be open to be a reference for me. Would you also mind writing a LinkedIn recommendation for me? Chances are she's going to say, yeah, that's fine. Unless, of course, for whatever reason, there's something weird in the relationship and she just doesn't want to go on record publicly to announce me. Or there are also some professions where they technically cannot write recommendations. Financial services and some attorneys. So depending on if that individual is governed by a regulatory body, some people just simply can't do certain things on social media. But what this would look like is, hey Nancy, I was in a class, they said recommendations are important, would you mind writing one for me? And if so, here's some suggested verbiage to get you started. Now I'm writing the 2 to 3 lines and I email it to her and I say, oh, and by the way, if you're not, if you're uncomfortable with doing this, no worries. And so I send this email to Nancy. Now, Nancy, again, assuming our relationship is very solid and assuming the information that I'm saying in the recommendation is true, chances are she's more than willing to write that recommendation on my behalf. Now, the reason that we suggest this strategy is because Nancy's very busy. I worked for Nancy 5 years ago. Nancy has hundreds of other people that she supervises, and she can't really remember what it was that I did. This way, I'm giving her information where now it just becomes a copy, cut, and paste exercise for Nancy, as opposed to me taking her time out of her precious day to write a recommendation for me. So again, that's the approach that we would suggest, is you write the recommendation as if it's coming from the other person, so that then that way it's a simple copy, cut, and paste exercise. Does that make sense? Yes, ma'am.
So I've actually had a couple people who said, can you write it for me? Yes, I'll do it. But then does it look like our verbiage, like that we're actually writing our own, or I'm sure?
Well, they're not going to know unless every recommendation reads the same, because then it'll be like, didn't so-and-so just say that same thing about? Right. So you want to make sure that it's true to that particular role.
So I have a, it was basically a supervisor and then one that was more of a peer. So it would be totally different. It would be totally different skill sets.
Yeah. So you just want to make sure that you're not copying and pasting the same language to every person. Otherwise, that will look odd. But the other thing that you can control in having them write and you providing them with the scripted language is now I can put those keywords that represent my skills and expertise inside. I can also include the measurable accomplishments inside of that recommendation. So then that way it will help elevate the potential of me being located by the search engine inside of LinkedIn. So again, make sure you're building credibility. Yes, ma'am.
So what if you get an endorsement and you know you have no skills about that? It's like, how do you kind of like...
You can do one of two ways. Either you could delete the skill altogether, or, that would probably be the best way to do it, is just delete the skill altogether. So then it's not there.
Okay.
Because, if it doesn't align with your background, then, you don't want to put false information out there. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. So if you're consulting, an independent contractor, at what point do you ask your clients, because I've been working on my own for a while, so at what point do I ask my clients for a recommendation?
Immediately. While it's fresh in their mind that she just finished. And naturally...
Do I finish the project, or in the middle of the project?
Typically, we ask after we're finished with it, unless, of course, is this like a 5-year engagement or something like that, but is there one pivotal moment where you're, where it's like, wow, she really rocked our socks on this particular aspect of the engagement, then you could do it whenever it's appropriate. But I typically, if it's a short-term assignment, I normally, right after that assignment is when I will say, hey, I really enjoyed working with you. Would you be willing to write a recommendation on my behalf? And if so, here's some suggested verbiage. Yes, sir.
If you're wanting to transition to another field, what recommendations or suggestions would you have in terms of incorporating those skill sets or interests into the recommendation for a previous job, although it's not in the same field?
I think so. History repeats itself, right? So if you were successful in this particular role, chances are I can envision you being successful, or at least there's a possibility that you could be successful in this other role. So a similar question might be, okay, I've got a vast amount of experience. My older experience is unrelated to what I'm trying to do now. So in my example, I'm a non-practicing CPA, haven't practiced accounting in forever. but I haven't taken that off of my LinkedIn profile either. It's in the body of my LinkedIn profile. Magically, one of our largest clients is the Maryland Association of CPAs. So could it be that when they needed someone to talk about social media and training of their association members, that because I'm a CPA, that positioned me better than someone who simply teaches social media? Because I can walk like them, talk like them, understand, you know what I mean? So I would encourage you all, do not marginalize prior experience, even though it may be unrelated, because you never know what someone may see in your profile that causes them to say, well, you're not good for that role, but I didn't realize you did that too. I have this other role that probably would be better suited for you. So, and same thing with recommendations. So I would encourage you to think more along those lines. Your LinkedIn profile is going to be a world of difference than your resume. You know, we probably have 10, 15, maybe more iterations of our resume, because the resume is going to be tweaked to the role that we're applying for. Hopefully you guys are doing this, where you're tweaking the resume to meet the objectives of that are stated in that particular role. Your LinkedIn profile, you don't know why someone might be looking at that. So that's why the resume sort of serves for that specific role. But on top of the resume, you want to make sure that your LinkedIn URL is on there, so that then you're giving them an additional body of work to look at, so that they could perhaps see something else in you that maybe isn't relevant to this role, but oh my gosh, we've got this other thing going on that we could use your help for. There were questions over here. Let me take you first.
Does the person that is giving you the recommendation have to post that recommendation into your LinkedIn site, or do you do that?
No, so they're going to complete the recommendation, but then you have to accept it that it will be added and viewable.
But they have to send it to you through LinkedIn.
Yes.
So it's better maybe to contact them through LinkedIn then?
Not necessarily. So
Okay.
in the example that I gave with Nancy and I would be sending her a good old-fashioned email.
Okay.
Because Nancy may not be in LinkedIn all the time. And I'm not a fan of LinkedIn's email platform.
Okay.
So yeah, you would do that in a traditional good old-fashioned email, and she would copy and paste it into LinkedIn.
Got it. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I was wondering, when LinkedIn first came out, I gave a recommendation. Both of us were junior in our career. Now I want to go in and make it a little beefier as we've progressed. Is there a way to do that? I just haven't.
I mean, I don't know that I would change from what it was, because it's still true based on that point in time. You may want to write them a new recommendation.
Right, yeah, when we're talking now, you know what I mean? We're connected.
So you would just write them another recommendation. I don't know that I would delete, or, I mean, you could if you want. That's up to you. That's
it just
personal
seems like,
opinion.
it was literally when LinkedIn first started in 2005. And now it's like I want to make it meatier also for him, because now he's like at the vice president level, and now he's looking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So yeah, you could delete it, or you could just write a whole new one.
So you can't like edit? That's what I was...
He would need to swing it back to you to edit it, which is a lot more drama than is necessary.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's the difference between an endorsement and a recommendation?
So an endorsement is like a LinkedIn, it's a thumbs up. So it's a one-click, you know, you're good at accounting, versus a recommendation is, I enjoyed working where he, you know, as a result of him being on the team, we saw a reduction in blah, blah, blah. So it's a written commentary that supports your background.
Endorsements by specific skill.
Exactly.
Multiple endorsements.
Yes. So a person can endorse you for multiple things. They can also write multiple recommendations. Typically, you're not going to see that though. But yeah, it's just simply like, you know, like you're just keystrokking, saying good things about people. Yes, ma'am.
This may be just particular to myself, maybe one or some other people in the room, but I've had experience working with people that are in a sensitive space. So I've been in Central Asia and Afghanistan for 14 years. My current surgeon senior brigade commanders are not.
Yeah, they're not gonna.
They're not. They told me to be very, very careful.
Yeah.
I'm a high value target. I should go back to Afghanistan.
Right.
So I'm unclear about whether I should even. So now, if I'm not in, I'm freelancing right now. So now I've been told here in Washington that I need this LinkedIn, but I can't really represent my past.
Right. So you would. So there's let's talk about that offline, because I don't want to. Yeah.
No,
that is very specific to. Yeah. Are there any other people that like in that whole defense or dark? What?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. We can. There's a big sign coming in that says photos and all that stuff. Okay, we'll blur you out or something. So So number 2 is know where to find opportunities. Is everyone using the jobs feature in LinkedIn? Yes, no? Okay, so because some of you are not, let's go ahead and show you what this looks like. So for starters, so the way that you would find, actually before we even do that, so if I click on my picture, so you're going to see, so there's my 3 words, catalyst, compass, and connector, so then now you know. So one of the ways, when you're talking about your brand in LinkedIn, make sure one of the low-hanging fruit ways that you can immediately draw sort of connectivity is if you use the banner, the space in your LinkedIn profile to, like, let's say if you're a technologist, maybe it's a picture of a motherboard. If you're a coach, maybe it's a whole bunch of people sitting around, or something that's going to help someone visually connect the industry that you're in with who you are.
How do you get that?
So if you click this pencil inside of your profile, it's then going to, then you should see another pencil up top under your banner, and that's where you would edit it.
Does that help? Because I love your 3 words. Is that how you put them in? Is that what you're telling me?
No, so this is a graphic. So it was a graphic that was developed and then brought in that way.
Wait, you developed it with a third party, you mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you, I'm sorry, say that again. So you click on the pencil on the bottom right, on the right-hand side, and then.
So you click on the pencil that's in, directly under. So click on that, and then you should see it's probably like blue connecting dots. And you should, if you hover up top, you should see another pencil.
There are places you can get.
And okay, so is everybody? And the other thing is, make sure when you're accessing LinkedIn that you're using Google Chrome, because that will change your experience as well. Make sure you're doing it from the website, not from an app, because there's limited functionality inside of an app versus the website. But yeah, you should see it. That's not a free versus basic thing. That's an anybody can do it.
So when we are in
Well, you
LinkedIn,
say doing it on the computer, use Google Chrome as opposed to say Safari.
Yeah, or Internet Explorer or whatever.
Because it has better functionality.
Yeah, you're going to see all of the bells and whistles as opposed to if you do it in Safari or Internet Explorer, sometimes you don't see certain functionality inside.
so you can just drag and drop. Like if you can find something like a picture or something that.
Now I will caution you, Google Images is not your friend in this exercise, because you want to make sure that is not a copywritten picture.
Correct.
Because wouldn't that be a bust? So make sure, and there's all sorts of like iStockPhotos.com. There's plenty of free websites where you can, or Canva.com, where you can pay $1 to then be able to use a picture inside of that area. So you'll see directly under here my headline. But the thing that I wanted to point out to you here, this is a free tip for you. So my home zip code is 20886, which is Montgomery Village. But I want to make sure that I display as Washington, D.C. Metro. The reason why is if I were searching for a job, I would want to make sure that I'm geographically attractive to an employer. Because let's say Jennifer applies for a job. Let's say I'm a technology company. We're in Reston. I see that she's in, Laurel, because that's what she selected, because that's her. Well, in the back of my mind, I'm already thinking she's going to be late to work every day. And she's going to get tired of this commute. And she comes off the list immediately. Now, is it right? No. Does it happen? Yes. So you want to make sure that you're taking the large geographic metro area as being displayed on your LinkedIn profile, because that makes you at least be geographically attractive to an employer. So that's the one thing that I wanted to show you on that. Now, the thing that I was ultimately getting to was jobs. So on the top toolbar, I can click on the icon here, jobs. Then inside of here, so let's say somebody give me the the keywords. So these would be like the technical words of your background that for a job that you might want to apply for.
Project manager.
Okay, so project, and I'm going to put in quotations, project manager. The reason why I'm putting it in quotations is because I want the word string to stay together. If I don't, it's going to look for project and it's going to look for manager. But now I'm keeping it together. Give me another attribute of the job.
Risk management.
Okay, so and risk management. Anything else? Like, is there an industry? Is it in healthcare? Is it in financial services? Is it
tourism and hospitality?
okay? And tourism.
So if you don't include and, it'll look for all of them separately, or?
And there's nothing, hold on, there's nothing, this was doing this yesterday too when I showed home. Let me see something. Okay, so there was nothing in there. You said, how about, let me try in hospitality and see if anything. So when I did tourism, nothing, hospitality. Spelling is not my strong suit. Okay, so so a couple things. What I did is I said, okay, I want to make sure it's project manager, or I could have put project management also, because so in that case I could say project manager, or in caps, project management in quotations, and risk management and hospitality. So what I'm telling LinkedIn to do is I'm saying, go out and find opportunities that have something to do, that have those word strings in the description of the opportunity. Now, because I said all United States, it's showing me that there's 30 roles that have all those words in it. I could have also said or risk management. And let's see, okay, my number was 30. Now it's 49,000. So, because again, it's looking for, do I have project manager or risk management in the description? But then if I know, okay, well, I only want Washington, D.C. area, I could then come under location, click this. Now those 49,820 are located in D.C. proper. If this looks like a good search to me, I could come over here, create a search alert. Then it's going to tell me on a daily or weekly basis. It's going to email me as well as give me a web notifier to say, oh, Kelly, here are the roles that met your the specificity of the filters that you're looking for. You can get even more specific if you know, oh, well, I'm at a director level. Now that's going to take my 820 down to 15 opportunities. Now, over here under more filters, someone was asking me about premium. Who is that? Premium. Okay. So here with premium, I can look for salary. So if I know, oh, well, I only want to look for jobs that are this particular amount, I have the ability to look for those things under premium. I also have the ability to have a greater number of searches in the queue under premium. So that's one tip, one differentiator between basic and premium, because you can't see the salaries under basic. Are there any veterans in the room? So veterans can get an upgrade 12 months at a time at no additional cost to premium. So that may be something you want to take advantage of. But, and most of us in the room can get a 30-day free upgrade. However, you don't want to do it until your profile is rock solid, because you don't want to sort of waste away the days and you're still trying to construct your profile to figure out what it looks like. So wait until your profile is like, yes, this looks amazing, then get your 30 days rolling, because you don't want someone seeing, I don't know, you like the nakedness of you in your profile.
So I have premium, and then I'm looking for different people, like I look for a job, and then I look for different people within that company. And then by the end of the month, it says that I get a message saying that I'm using it for commercial. It looks like I'm using it as for commercial use, and it's an upgrade. And then I've contacted them, so I'm not using it. I'm looking for a job.
Right.
So it's exhausting my limit. Do you have any way around that?
Which version of premium are you using? Are you using not Talent Connect, what is it called on the side? I'm trying to remember what it's called on the consumer side, because it's a different name. Yeah, I think it is called Talent Connect, if I'm not mistaken. So I would ask them which version should you have, because there's a specific one for job seekers that you may want to make sure that that's the one that you have.
And what was the site that you said to look for the free image?
Oh, so there's iStock Photos is one, like the letter I, stockphotos.com, and the other one is Canva, CANVA.com. Yes, sir.
So I've had a background of like 12 years or so in business-to-business collections, and I love that. And I was thinking of going back to that because, you know, personal project management is entrepreneurial and, you know, kind of this and that. I've made many applications to you know, collections type positions, and what I've noticed is that, you know, putting up a B2B, collections professional, is that I'm getting interest from the intelligence community because collections is used in spy type things, and also phlebotomy. So drawing blood.
Right.
So it's like, okay, I could do the accounts receivable thing, but accounts receivable implies that you have billing expertise,
Right.
which is a specialty in itself.
Yep.
Do you have any suggestions about ways to differentiate myself so I can, say, hey, I'm great at personal project management, personal assistance, and
Right.
B2B.
It's probably in your summary. It's going to be the way that you write your summary.
Okay.
So share in your summary what your background, your expertise is, and then be explicit about stating, okay, to leverage my skill set in these particular environments, contact me on telephone number, email, address.
Right, okay.
That type of scenario. And then it's just going to be incumbent upon you to then look at when you're looking at different jobs just to make sure that those roles are more aligned with what you're looking to do.
Okay, cool.
But yeah, I would say the summary is where you would
Summary
want to
piece.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The thing that you want to keep, so Boolean search logic is what's underlying. So the word and, you remember I said something about and or not. That's what's driving the LinkedIn platform. So when you're using those search filters, you want to make sure that you're using the words and, or, and not to be able to better filter the results to meet your desired outcomes. Did you have a question, or are you stretching?
Well, just a quick one.
Yeah.
The summary is so important. I've gotten such conflicting advice between first person or not. A lot of people say do it as first person, and you don't. And
So, okay, there are a number of schools of thought, and really at the end of the day, it's your profile, so you need to do what you're most comfortable with. But my goal, in the way that we sort of coach our clients through it, is to do it third person. The reason why is because at the end of the day, we want people, when they read it, I want to feel like, oh wow, you walk on water and glow in the dark. And if you're talking about your greatness in first person, I might think, oh wow, you're arrogant, or you're full of pride, oh wow. And so it just reads differently. When you speak well about yourself in third person, it just sounds like someone's edifying you and talking nicely about you, as opposed to when you say it yourself, that sounds like you're bragging. So that's why we generally will recommend third person. But again, it really just depends on how the summary reads. Like where if it's a soft kind of, oh, I did this and I did that, and it's not like, oh, I'm the bee's knees, then maybe first person is okay. And I think in certain industries, like if you're marketing, like where you're like kind of, like a fun type of profession, I think it's okay to be first person. But I by and large, most of our clients, we coach them to do third person.
So you actually mean kind of like Iliism? Like Kristen does this, Kristen. What about like top performing, just say top performing marketing manager? Like how about, I don't know, what is that? No person?
What now, say again? No, that's like, what's that, no person, right?
No
person. If you're just saying top performing marketing.
It's like, so I'm a recruiting manager and so like you're proven, because I proven top performing recruiting manager.
Right.
Like,
Right.
instead, I don't know, I just as a recruiter, when I would see the Iliism, especially if they were really junior, but I'm not, and they'd be like talking about themselves.
Well, but then even beyond that too, so if you are writing your profile correctly, you wouldn't need to say words like proven, because I'll understand from reading your profile.
Right, I don't want to use proven, yeah.
Yeah.
Also,
So I would say so much of it is in the words that you're using and what you're saying. Is it really value based? So again, what's in it for me? Yeah. And if it's really strong, sort of the ways that you've contributed in those environments.
Like the measurable quantitative results.
Yeah. And I think there's value to doing it in third person. But again, it's your profile. You need to own it. And so if you're comfortable with first person, then go for it.
Or I'm just thinking of that summary. If I just put like top performing recruiting manager, blah, 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 without using.
Yeah, you could do that. You could do that. But again, at some point, because people hire people they know, like, and trust. Yeah. And there's gonna need to be an inflection of you as a person somewhere in that. Otherwise, you sound like a robot and you're very mechanical. Right. And so, as opposed to, you know, she's done this and that, and this is the way that she's contributed, and these are some of the great, you know, her most notable accomplishments include these things. So again, you want to personalize it as best as you can, because people hire people, they don't.
I know, it's my fault. I guess it's
robots
so,
now.
you have to decide between the third, the Iliism,
Yes,
and the first person.
right. So here, support for vets. So if you are a veteran, I meant to include the URL. If you just do a Google search on LinkedIn for vets, and I actually think that may be the URL, linkedinforvets.com. But you'll be able to find it if you just Google LinkedIn for vets. And then the number one tip or strategy is to leverage a network. Ask for help. Make sure you're getting those recommendations and endorsements as well as referrals. But do it in a thoughtful manner. Now would be a great time for you to invoke or figure out what's your connection strategy going to be. If you have less than 500 connections, for example, figure out a way that, okay, how am I going to strategically build to more than 500 LinkedIn connections? Because right, wrong, or indifferent, there's sort of, again, that's one of those metrics that separates the players from the pretenders, that it's like, okay, you mean to tell me that you're 40 plus and you don't know at least 500 people in LinkedIn? And the thing is that LinkedIn connections, there's a reason why they call them connections and not friends when you think about Facebook. So again, it's just connections. We're all connected to one another. Doesn't mean that I'm inviting you over for Sunday dinner or going to your kid's wedding, but we're connected in some way through business. And so I would encourage you to really figure out, okay, what's your connection strategy going to be? And then from there, how are you going to engage people? I alluded to the conversation, let's say Tom and I, so we're reconnecting for the first time. Because there's going to be a lot of people that perhaps you're not currently connected to that you should be, or maybe that you're currently connected to but don't have any idea that you're looking for a role right now. And so now would be a good time for you to work on your LinkedIn profile, make sure it's rock solid, but then start reaching out to some of those people. So again, in the example with Tom, hey Tom, it's been a while, I know we haven't talked in some time, I would love to just catch up and find out what you've got going on to close out the end of the year, or what your plans are, you know, any big exciting plans for 2018. And then scheduling, and typically I also preface it by saying I would love to get 5 minutes of your time just to catch up and find out what's going on. The reason why I say 5 minutes and not, let's schedule a conference call, because conference call sounds like a commitment, and people are non-committal, right? We're all, especially this time of year, we're super busy, but most people are willing to invest 5 minutes in you. And so once we schedule that call, Tom and I, we get on the call 5 minutes. Hey Tom, we said 5 minutes and I want to be respectful of your time. Why don't you take the first 2.5 and I'll take the second 2.5. So now Tom knows in the back of his mind, I got 2.5 minutes to update her and share about what's going on. And it's up to him to share whatever it is that he wants to share. But then at the end of that 2.5 minutes, what I typically will say to a person is, hey Tom, that's awesome. What's one specific way I can help you today or going into the new year? And then he's going to say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Who knows? Sometimes they're going to say, I have no idea. Wow, that's a great question. Thanks for even asking me that. But guess what? If Tom is even half a decent human being, at the end of my 2.5 minutes, guess what he's going to ask me? What's one specific way that I can help you today? Oh, I'm so glad you asked. I'm in career transition, and I'm looking to do blah, 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 blah. If you happen to know of anyone, or hey, I noticed that you're connected to Bob at ABC Company, how well do you know him? Would you be open to making an introduction on my behalf? Because again, now we're having a meaningful short dialogue, and if you can get really good about scheduling these 5-10 minute calls with people that are in your network, so that now you're not the only one looking on your behalf, but you've got potentially hundreds of people looking on your behalf, and or if you get on that call and you've done your homework, and I know that Tom is connected to somebody at, I don't know, United Healthcare, and that's where I'm trying to get into, then it's going to help us to work smarter and not harder. So my husband, what was it, like 2 months ago, lost his job, and he literally, during a maybe 20-day period, put in over 200, applied for over 200 roles. All of the roles that he got called in for was because he did a similar strategy to what I just shared with you, where he let enough people know, hey, this is what's going on with me. And the role that he ended up getting was because someone that he talked to was like, oh my gosh, you need to call this company. They're doing this right now. And that's the job he got. So gone are the days where we can rely on sort of only what we know. It's really who we know that's going to fuel our ability to be able to get these opportunities. And if you're uncomfortable with getting to know people, if you're uncomfortable with throwing yourself out there, you may need to invest in a coach or just do something, or come to these sessions where they're going to train you and help you to get more comfortable with it, because that's really what's going to better position you for positive outcomes. So again, make sure that you are leveraging your network. So the bottom line is focus on how to be social, not how to do social, right? Because we can all easily, it's mechanical. We're doing keystrokes, we're there, and we're expecting sort of the world to just find us. But no, we've got to be really good and really focus on being social, not just simply doing social. Yes, ma'am?
Most of the people that I have worked with in psychology and social work and medicine are not on LinkedIn. Is it possible for someone not on LinkedIn to write a recommendation or endorsement? You have to be within the
Yeah. The one caveat, or two caveats, they have to be on LinkedIn and you have to be connected to them. Otherwise, it's a no-go. Yes, sir.
I sort of have sort of a big strategy question, and it came to mind when you were talking about your husband's situation. So there's networking, finding about the hidden job market, and there's applying to jobs that are posted on the LinkedIn, whatever, Glassdoor. What's the mix, or do you have any advice on that? If you do exclusively applying to jobs that are posted, some of those get hundreds, maybe more applications. But I don't know that it's a good idea to completely ignore that either.
You're right. So the strategy becomes, so you find a job. So in this other search that we did, we came up with, 15 jobs. And so let's say I look into, I'm trying to find a real, okay, so let's say it's this one that I'm like, oh wow, this is the perfect job for me. And so instead of me just clicking apply, what I would want to do is I would want to look at, well, who am I connected to that works there? And let me get the inside track. Let me network with them for the role that I apply for. And I would also, it takes a little time, but I would recommend reaching out to these people before you even apply for the job. Because keep in mind, a lot of organizations incent their employees to help with the job search. And so if I reach out to, let's say, I don't know, it's Judy, and I'm like, hey, Judy, I saw this role, I would love, she's incented because at the end, once I reach my probationary period, she may be on the other end of $1,500 or some sort of cash bonus for bringing me in. However, there are some organizations that say, if I just blindly go ahead and apply and then I reach out to Judy and I'm already in the queue, then Judy doesn't necessarily get credit for me. I'm just in the general population, so to speak. So while she may still, out of the goodness of her heart, still help me, it becomes more of a struggle to convince her to help me because of the fact that now, again, what's in it for me is what she's thinking, well, I just don't have time to help you, maybe. I don't think that you do one independent of the other. It's almost like you have to blend the approach in order to really sort of supersize your results. And I mean, let's face it, finding a job is a full-time job in and of itself. So if you're not spending, like, again, I told you 200 applications in probably a span of like 15 to 20 days. So you can believe he was up, sun down, doing this and working his network. So if you're, if you take life casually, you'll become a casualty. Have you ever heard of that? So you can't take this process casually because, again, there are a lot of open roles, and while you may not be, you may want to look at re-engineering your skill set or using tools like Lynda or the other online training platform, or not Lynda because now it's LinkedIn Learning, to then brush up on your skill set, things like that. Another great place for you to potentially do some things in is anyone familiar with ProFinder? So LinkedIn Profile, you have to apply to be in ProFinder. If I click on this grid on the right, and then I click on ProFinder, what it is you can apply to basically have your skill set available on a contractual basis. It's almost like everybody's familiar with like Angie's List, things like that. Well, it's like almost like the Angie's List of LinkedIn. Where now, if I know that, I'm a risk management professional, or maybe I'm a writer, and so you can then put yourself out there, your independent contracting skills, and then people will find you and hire you for short-term projects. Because at least then you're making some money and you've got some experience that you're building as well. So it's a really great tool for you to consider as well.
So
but
this is more for freelancers, I guess. Then.
Exactly. Well, it can be for both. I mean, because I don't think that there's anything wrong with. Someone once said, "What if someone offers you $50 and $100? What should you take?" Both is the answer. So because you don't want to. Again, if you're operating in a vacuum and all you're doing is I'm looking for a job, but then at the end of that you have nothing. Versus if you're doing both. Like where at least it's posted here where if someone sees your skill set and they happen to say, oh my gosh, I'm looking for that, then you're in a better position to at least generate some cash flow as opposed to nothing at all. So on an average day, I probably get 3 to 5 inquiries, people reaching out to me for skills like for strategy development, social media, all these other things. So again, you've got to, but your profile needs to be rock solid because there needs to be something about you that someone's like, oh, okay, wow, this person's skill set looks really cool. I could use that service.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
I'll make it really quick.
Yep.
200 applications in 15 or 20 days?
Mm-hmm.
That's impressive. I've been told, maybe this is not accurate, that you should try to customize your resume, your application for every position.
Yep.
Which takes a little time.
Oh yeah.
Your husband must have been like working like sun up to sun down.
Yeah, but a lot of the roles were very similar.
Very similar. Okay.
Yeah, so it wasn't a ton of tweaking that needed to be done.
Okay.
Ken, are you coming to do the cane?
Nope.
Okay. How much longer do we have? Because I wanted to give somebody an opportunity to do a
15
demo.
minutes?
How much?
15.
Okay, who wants to volunteer for me to look at their profile? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, rock star. Let's go to the rock star. What's your name, sir, again?
John, last name is Pulley.
John.
Uh-huh.
Oops. P-U.
Right, L-L-E-Y.
L-L-E-Y.
There's a male model with the same name, so I hope you don't pull up this.
You said E-Y?
E-Y.
Is this you?
Yes.
Okay, so immediately I think, okay, he's got something to do with like innovation ideas, something like, because I'm thinking, okay, light bulb. Is that correct?
I just want to get off the default where the default background was.
So strategic communications for changing my, oh, with powerful stories. That's cool. Gotcha. UVA. Okay, award-winning strategic communication founder and fully group. Awesome, awesome. Project highlights, awesome. Okay, so, and again, in the interest of time, I'm not going to read the whole thing. However, I can just really quickly, just numbers pop out at me, so I can see this 10 billion number, I can see this 500,000 number. The only thing that I would encourage you to maybe do is add a call to action at the end of your summary.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, to leverage John's X number of years of expertise, changing minds with powerful stories, contact him on. Now, this is where I lose some people, because in my summary, you're actually going to see my telephone number and email address, and some people are like, the spam you must get, and the phone calls you must get. But you know what? I could probably count on probably only a couple of instances where I got like weird phone calls, and it wasn't like heavy breathing. It was like, hey, we're going to sell you life, and it was just an aggressive salesperson. And that's when, no thank you, remove me from your list comes in handy. As opposed to the number of times that people have called and said, oh my gosh, I found you on LinkedIn, can you do blah, blah, blah. And you're like, absolutely. So which would you rather? Would you rather make it really easy for the people you want to find you, or difficult for the people that you want to find you to find you? So, same thing with the email. If you list an email address, that's what the delete button's for. And for those of you that are like, oh, but identity theft and all that, you know what? Our information's out there anyway. It's out there. We're all out there, so just get comfortable with it. Yes, ma'am.
That was going to be my question, actually. I don't put my email or my phone number out there because of the identity theft.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been the victim of potential theft 3 times. They nipped it in the bud, but
right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, and it could be maybe you just have the email address, or maybe it's a cell phone number. And for me, I've gotten to the point where my cell phone rings all the time. If I don't recognize the number, send a voicemail. Send a voicemail. If it's important, they're going to leave you a voicemail. Mm-hmm. If they're a weirdo, they're not going to leave you a voicemail. So that's just something to consider.
Is it your personal phone number or Google voicemail?
It's my mobile number.
Okay.
Yeah, my regular mobile number. Yes, ma'am.
That section you recommended adding, like to leverage so-and-so's experience, goes at the bottom of that first paragraph? Or?
I do. Well, first of all, I would tell you to shorten this a little bit, but it's literally at the bottom. So if you were to look at my profile, because I'm a student of everything that I teach, you're going to see what I'm talking about. The other thing, John, that I would tell you to do is add your specialties at the bottom. So you're going to see, so generally we recommend 2 to 3 high impact paragraphs listing some of your bullet pointing, some of your notable contributions. Call to action. Typically my call to action is stronger than this, but I just changed it to be short, sweet, to the point. Contact Kelly, telephone number, email address to leverage her unique expertise. Then the word specialties, comma separated. These are the words that the community that I'm trying to attract would be using to find me in a search.
Why do you have your phone number and email in brackets with the vertical?
Because it's kind of like, there's no really reason. Because when you read brackets, it can still read contact Kelly to leverage her.
Okay, I
So,
didn't know
yeah.
if that was on LinkedIn.
No, it's not. It's just a weird
So that last thing after you have your contact, that's just using your keywords.
Just a handful. Like I take my 5 to 7 top ones.
Okay.
Because again, keep in mind, LinkedIn, the search engine, is looking for people training. And so the more times that I can use my specific expertise, the greater probability of me being appearing in a search when someone's looking for that background or skill set. Yes?
Yeah, once you found your opportunity and you started, how should you change your summary?
Once you find an opportunity, I mean, my summary has been my summary for a really long time. So it's going to be up to you to figure that out. I mean, because once you find a job, it may be that you're going to take off the call to action because maybe you're just there to connect with people. But you may also want to be in perpetual building relationship mode because you never know when So yeah, that's what I would say. Let me see, experience. So he's got his experience, good stuff. Okay. So I'm assuming, strategic communications, content mix. So these are your top 3, not number of endorsements, but your top 3, what you want people to know you for.
Let's just say yes for now.
Okay, because if not, what I would tell him to do is move his order so that his top 3 are shown. Because if you notice, I had to click this, and some people are just lazy and they're not going to click. So you're drawing the person's interest or their eye to these top 3.
Right.
So if those aren't the top 3, you would want to just shift and move them.
You can just move them in that other list. You can drag them around.
Yeah, you can drag them around in your edit function.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just increase your recommendations.
That's a really old recommendation. It's not, doesn't really speak to what I'm doing now.
2009. Yeah, so you would want to increase that. And here's another thing. So if you are looking for a supervisory position, and I train a lot of like people that are HR professionals, one thing that you want to make sure of, that you not only have given recommendations, or not that you've received recommendations, but you've given recommendations. Because nothing smells fishier than when you look at someone's profile and they've got like 40 recommendations, or let's just say 15 recommendations that they've received and they've given 1. To me, that immediately says they're good at taking but not giving. So giver's gain says that I'm going to be better served if I maybe give a whole lot of people really great recommendations than if I receive, because it's just the karma law of the universe, what have you, where it's like, okay, I want to exhibit the behavior that I want to be exhibited to me. And not only that, if I'm an HR, like if I'm a hiring manager and I know you're going to be supervising people, but I see, it looks like you're really good at taking compliments, but you can't give compliments. That's a problem for us because our culture is one where we're mentoring and we're supporting and we're training people and we're giving feedback. So make sure that you have a balance between the two. And if anything, you have more that you've given than you've received. But that doesn't mean that you don't get any, because that's not a good look either. Yes, ma'am.
So when you're making all these changes to your profile, then how do you balance it so that it doesn't, I mean, do you want it to get, I don't have a lot of time, right, to make all of the changes, so I want to make them throughout the periods of time. So how do I get it published? Or I guess what the question is, what is the suggestion to then have it published all at once? Or when I start making the changes, as I make the changes?
It depends on who you are. I mean, it depends on your style. I would recommend you have a Word document perhaps, or maybe it's even you start with some iteration of your resume, and you're sort of, okay, my headline is going to read like this, and this is going to read, and so you have it all in a Word document where now you're copying and pasting, because that's going to help you to maintain some of the formatting stuff too, like your bullet points and all that good stuff. So it may be that you put it all in a Word document and then just copy and paste it into the relevant sections. That's what I would suggest. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would suggest. But if you know the all at once is going to take you like 2-3 weeks, then maybe it's like, okay, I know I need to focus on getting a really strong summary done, and let me knock that out, so at least I've got something that represents me well until I can fill in the rest of the other sections.
Yes. So I just want to make sure, you guys recommend, I see 2 to 3 paragraphs on the summary. You recommend more of the meat there than in the actual jobs? Do you follow?
Well, no. So my summary is going to read back to it's going to even pull in some of my background that's down below, up top.
Right.
Because a person, keep in mind, we only have, 5 to 7 seconds initially to capture someone's attention with our headline. Then they're like, oh, that's interesting, let me read more. So now we've got their commitment to read a summary. Shouldn't be long, otherwise you're going to lose their commitment. Oh, the summary is intriguing and compelling enough. Let me read the experience. And so you're building, it's building blocks.
So 2 to 3, so 2 to 3, but still, like, you want that boom impact in the summary, because I want to make sure I'm not repetitive.
Some of it may be repetitive if you're super excited about the information, and you're just going to build from there. Okay. So yeah, you're going to see certain, because again, and that's why this is short, sweet, and to the point, because then this just is designed to whet their palate, then they can learn more if they keep reading further down. Yeah. So there may be some repetition, but it's going to be minimal.
Okay.
So sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for coming.
Do you have a recommendation on the minimum amount of recommendations you should have? What's your code?
I mean, your codes are, I would say at a minimum, if you can get 5, at least that's something. Okay. But your goal should be there is no limit to the number that you can get, but I would say if you're looking for a starting number, at a minimum, make sure you've got 5 going out the block.
What is it he asked you?
Oh, he asked, he said, is there a number that we should shoot for in terms of recommendations? And so I told him at a minimum out of the block, make sure you got at least 5 of them on there. But more is better.
Let me ask you, if you're not going to learn everything you need to know in your session, is there an online source that you can go to that will...
Yeah, I know, look at you. I'm going to take you on the road with me. So if you go to boostmylinkedin.com, you'll find some more information. There's also like a profile assessment. There's checklists. So there's also one checklist that's an operating rhythm. These are things that you should be doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis to stay engaged in LinkedIn. This presupposes that your profile
just by
is rock
linking
solid.
with your website?
If you go to my website, yeah. And if you need more help, you can feel free to reach out to me.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. So with that, bottom line, relationships matter. Again, it's so often your search is going to result in who you know, not what you know. And so I would encourage you to continue just pursue being social and not doing social so that you can get your needs met. And with that, thank you all for your time.
So we have a little bit of a little token of our appreciation. Very limited edition, 40+ mugs, and our
wow.
souvenir.
Nice.
So, thank you. Let's get a quick picture. Yay.
Go a little closer.
Okay.
That's what I had a problem with last week.
Okay. Great. Thanks again. So, while you were in here and I was back and forth, we did have a chance to make some more photocopies of the presentation. So they're on the table as you leave outside. Quick reminders for next week. We're going to have a bit of a special event. We have a speaker.